This is a tier. Fuck no. Basically, this is just a tier list on most of the decks that you'll find in mid to high ladder, like, or at least while you're climbing ladder, from like 4,000 to 6,500. These are the main decks that you'll be seeing. Obviously, some people play their own, but these are just the decks that have seen really good use and have like are actually meta. Double spawner. Early on, like if you're a 5 to 6,000 player, you usually struggle with this deck a lot. So you could get to 5-6,000 trophies pretty well, depending on the level of your cards, how much time you put into them, everything like that. Those small things. So it's a good deck. It's really annoying to fight, and people call it no skill, but it's a good deck. That's why people call it no skill. Electro Giant is S tier. It has a couple hard counters, but every deck does. Um, but I feel like a lot of people don't understand how good the deck really is. Like, once you get the hand down to play the Electro Giants properly, and if you can count their cards and like track their elixir, you can win so many games. Like I remember I played classic challenges and I was able to like just breeze through so many matches because they either didn't know how to defend or B struggled to, and C they couldn't defend like when they once they got a hold. Elixir Golem Battle Healer, I would say S, but it's either they 3 crown you or they never get damage on your tower. That's how it feels. They either like absolutely shit on you or they don't really do much to you. So it's not like something you have to worry about. Fireball bait, if this is the recruits if this is like the recruits hogs, it would be B tier because usually you can add Mother Witch or Goblin Cage, and those two got a nerf a little while ago, so they're not as good. But if you're talking about like Barbarians and Minion Horde one, it's also B tier, so just generally a B tier. You can get some pretty nasty pushes if they have all their cards at a cycle, but most people carry like Valk, Wizard, or Executioner, or other splash cards that deal with it pretty well. Like Bomb Tower is a really hard counter to Fireball, like Mega Knight as well. Like yeah, Goblin Giant Sparky, it's weird. The Goblin Giant is kind of bad, and so is Sparky alone. But those two comboed with like a Mini P.E.K.K.A, Rage, Minions, Zap, Lightning, all those kind of cards, you can make a really strong deck that I feel like a lot of people gotta use. Because not that many people are playing it as many as I think should. Golem Night Witch, honestly, is not that good. It takes a high skill player to play it well if their first or second push doesn't work. Like what I would say is if you're playing against a good player, it's like a beatdown. It either works really well or it doesn't work at all. So it's one of those decks that I honestly feel like takes a little bit of skill to get high, but doesn't take any to get like 5,000 trophies. Like some of these decks take skill. Like Fireball Bait would take skill to get to 5k, but Golem Night Witch wouldn't. But to get to 6k, it'd be easier with Fireball Bait than Golem Night Witch. That's just my opinion because most people never expand on how to play with that. Graveyard, I would say B tier. Simply, well, it's actually a really, really strong deck that can be used in high ladder, but I'm talking about like mid ladder, like 5 to 6,500 trophies, and most people don't know how to play Graveyard because they don't know how to do like 300 damage and be able to defend and not take more than that. Be up damage every time. That's the thing with Graveyard. It's a control deck. It's harder to use. Hog Cycle is good. Once you understand how to like Musketeer stack and like really bait really well with like Hog Rider, use Hog Rider as like a counter push where it can like stall, you'll be golden. You'll be golden. You can get to 5,600. Like you could easily. Like Lava Loon actually is good. But Lumberloon is bad. People say Lumberloon is OP. Blah blah blah. I've heard the argument. It's good. It hard counters a couple decks, but Lumberloon is not as good as the Lavaloon counterpart. Because Lavaloon, I've seen Lavaloon clone, Lavaloon minor, like minor loon. Like it's just a better composition. And you can get higher with it way faster, and you can become way more controlling because Lumberloon is really sporadic. Sometimes you do really well, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're on a losing streak, while this is a more consistent deck. Logbait is a really consistent deck, but it's not as good as some people might think. It's just not. Some people say it's like, oh, it's so annoying. It hard counters my deck. Like I've watched like people in top ladder, and they say it hard counters Pekka Bridge spam, which I'm gonna get up to. But if you're playing like Fireball Bait, you never lose to Log Bait. If you do, you're just bad. Because like Fireball Bait, I play triple spell where you have Barbarian Barrel, arrows, and Fireball. You can't lose with that. You just can't. You can arrow their princess, bar barrel their goblin barrel, and usually play like Fireball if you need on Goblin Gang or something like their other bait. So it's decent. You can get pretty high with it, but after a while, people usually carry a good amount of counters, like usually two spells and a really good counter to their bait. Mega Goblins, I always feel like I struggle on E-Giant decks when I go against it and other things like that because you can't really resort to the Inferno Dragon. It's a good deck. It's definitely a good deck. Like, I would say A tier. But just having it click with someone or like click with you, like, you know, where you just get used to it, it's odd. It's a really odd deck that I feel like some would find it be like, oh, it's the best deck in the world, and other would be like, this deck sucks. Why does anyone want to use it? Why is it used? And it's just this Mega Goblins, like the Mega Knight Goblins deck, is just up to preference. It's like a wild card. Wallbreaker Miner, I've seen people use it, and I think it's the one with Magic Archer and Knight and Bomb Tower. I don't know why it works so well, but I've seen literally like top players use it, and I've seen even people in 5,000-6,000 trophy use it and pick it up and understand it really well and get the concept of it, at least like the surface level of it, really well. So I think it's a really strong deck because it's like a control deck. You could even get 2 towers with it, and Miner is just a really, really strong card. Mortar Cycle, other known as Rocket Cycle, you barely hit stuff with the mortar. Like, if you're down at 4,000 or 5,000, you could probably hit the mortar on the tower a couple times. Once you get to like 5,600, 6,000, 6,500, you're not hitting the mortar. You're just spamming rockets and just playing the mortars, the bait, basically. It's really funny. Pecker Bridge Spam, I would say is an S tier. People can disagree. It's one of my main decks. I may have a personal bias. That's just me, though. But simply, it's a really good deck that a lot of people don't like using. Pekka Bridgeman with like the Ram Rider and Dark Prince has almost no counters with the Lightning. The one that I use is with the Battle Ram, Bandit, Royal Ghost, Fireball Zap. That one's also good. I just enjoy using it more, so it's almost enjoying, while the other one's better. But simply, it's such a strong deck that if you just play, you just need one push. It's like Beatdown, but it's not just playing and hoping that they can't defend. It's just waiting for that one time, or sending a Bandit, Royal Ghost, or Battle Ram other lane while they try to defend your push, and you just get like 2,000 damage. It's a really fun deck to use. It's really satisfying to play. I feel like a lot of people should try it out, and it's definitely worth the search to see like if they should play it. Expo Cycle, you can literally lose the game to taking like 600 damage. Every game is 5-6 minutes. Every game is so slow. Every game is like it always feels the same. I used to try to I tried learning this deck. I didn't really enjoy it after spending so long doing the same thing over and over. Some people could. I prefer that I would never want to play Expo. But that's just me. Royal Giant S tier. Royal Giant is such a good win condition once everything's equal level. Like, when you have equal level cards, super strong. When it's under leveled, it's not really, it's kind of squishy. When it's over leveled, yeah, it's going to be like hitting like a truck, but it's a really good card that I feel like a lot of people should make sure that they use. Just like, Royal Giant decks are so strong. They have really good defense, really good counter, and usually the ones with Mother Witch or Goblin Cage or whatever, super strong. I feel like a lot of people have to try these S tier decks. They may not be S tier to you if you have tried them for a while, but These S tier decks are definitely worth a try, simply because of how strong they can be. You may lose at them. Not saying they're just gonna hand you wins, but these decks can definitely win you games more consistently and not resort to gimmicks that may work at your current trophy level. So these are the S tier and A tier are definitely ones that you want to use if you're trying to rank up.